The San Francisco 49ers finished the 2021 season with an NFC Championship game appearance after what was truly a roller coaster of a season. This team was 2-4 through 6 games and 3-5 through 8 games, yet finished the regular season with a 10-7 record, swept the Rams in the regular season, beat the Bengals in Cincinnati, and had 2 road playoff wins. This was after they traded 3 first-round picks to go up and get their quarterback of the future in Trey Lance. And we have been flying through the NFL team previews, and I have seen a lot of requests to do the 49ers, and I wanted to wait and get some clarity on the Jimmy G situation before going ahead and making the video. And now that he has agreed to a restructured 1-year deal, I thought now was the best time to do so, and there is a lot to look forward to with this team, and we will dive into everything from Trey Lance's development to Debo to the defense, and without further ado, let's begin. And as mentioned in the intro, the 49ers started out 2-4 last year, yet made the NFC Championship game. While they, like everyone else, will lose games this year, as it's highly unlikely any team goes 17-0, I would be floored if they start out that bad in 2022, even with Trey Lance and the natural struggles he will go through as a young quarterback. Their schedule through this year's first 6 games is the easiest part of their schedule, and you'd have to think for them to get back to the playoffs, because as 49ers fans especially know, anything can happen in January, that they'd have to get to at least 10 wins, and that is more than possible with this core group they have. Their first 2 games are at Chicago and home against Seattle, and I fully realize Seattle swept this team last year, but I do think San Fran gets their revenge and they start out 2-0. The next 2 are difficult in Denver and home against the Rams, and I'm not focusing on them as much as I am week 5 and week 6, which are at Carolina and at Atlanta. And going to the East Coast for a West Coast team is never easy, but look guys, the 49ers have a better roster than both Carolina and Atlanta, and these are must-win games. In a more competitive NFC than never before, they can't afford to drop one of these games they, on paper, are the favorite by quite a bit in, and that's even with Baker Mayfield now being the Panthers' starting quarterback. Versus the Chiefs, then at the Rams, again, are difficult games for anyone, not just the team that went to the NFC Championship game a year ago, and the schedule does not get easier for them after the bye. We're not going to dissect every game, but you can see how brutal of a schedule it's going to be for them all year, and now I do want to discuss Trey Lance and how he will have to play for them to maximize their wins this year. The main thing to remember with the 49ers and the success they've had over the past 3 years from the quarterback position is what Jimmy G did not do, and Jimmy G didn't lose them games. So while we all know Jimmy isn't a Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, he played his role extremely well, and that's something Trey Lance is going to have to remember. More often than not, Trey isn't going to have to roll out to his right and make a throw 45 yards to Debo Samuel while simultaneously getting drilled by Aaron Donald 8 yards out of the pocket. Jimmy only threw 20 touchdowns last year and had the same interception rate of 2.7% as Joe Burrow had for the Bengals. And in the 2 playoff wins they had last year, he combined for just 44 passing attempts, and more importantly, the team came out with 2 wins. It was much of the same for the 49ers during their 2019 run to the Super Bowl when they beat the Vikings and Packers in the divisional round of the playoffs, and in those games, Jimmy attempted 27 total passes and most notably just 8 during the NFC Championship game against Green Bay. And the expectations for Trey are going to be a little different, yes, as I don't think this franchise spent 3 first-round picks to have their quarterback throw the ball less than 10 times in a playoff game, but the concept of not losing the team game applies. Don't turn the ball over, let Kyle Shanahan's system do its job, and at the end of the day, walk away with what matters most: a win. And with an offense that has playmakers like Deebo Samuel, Elijah Mitchell, and in my opinion the best overall tight end in football in George Kittle, it's easy to buy into the 2022 49ers. Also, shout out Trent Williams on the offensive line. The only thing I don't like seeing is people projecting Trey to be just an absolute unit offensively in 2022, solely based off of his 71 passing attempts in 2021. Could he become a very good quarterback? Yes, of course, as most quarterbacks would kill to have the system and the players around him he does, but to project him to be a top whatever quarterback in 2022 after a full missed season in 2020 due to the North Dakota State football program and sparingly playing in 2021 to me does not add up, especially when factoring in their brutal schedule and how many times Trey will more than likely have to come through when it matters most. And within this, I don't expect head coach Kyle Shanahan to force Trey Lance to throw a ton of downfield passes as in 20 plus yards, as he has good playmakers, and I'm not saying it never happened last year, because it obviously did, but the 49ers do not throw the ball a ton deep downfield. 47.3% of George Kittle's targets last year came within 0 to 9 yards of the line of scrimmage, and another 14% of his targets came from behind the line of scrimmage, so 61.3% of Kittle's targets were within 10 yards from the line, and like, love, or hate Trey Lance, if he can't complete 75 to 80% of those passes that close to George Kittle, then he probably should not be an NFL quarterback. Only 10.8% of Kittle's 94 targets came from 20 plus yards beyond the line of scrimmage, which is classified as a deep target according to PFF, and he hauled in 4 of those said passes. The percentages for Deebo Samuel weren't much different, and we're not going to go in depth here with every player on the 49ers roster, but I very much trust how Kyle Shanahan will progress Trey Lance along in the 2022 season. And in a way, the 49ers schedule benefits them, as they can kind of ease their way onto the hypothetical interstate, with Chicago and Seattle being the metaphorical merging lane before they get into the muck of it and play the Broncos and Rams. But there is more to the 49ers team than just Trey Lance and Kyle Shanahan, and given how dominant of a player he was in 2021, it should come as no surprise I really love Nick Bosa entering 2022. Bosa had a win percentage, this is a pass rush win percentage, of 20.7% last year, which was good for 9th in the NFL, and he finished the season with 15.5 sacks, which was good for 4th in the NFL. Bosa is one of the best pass rushers in the league, and I was thinking about doing an entire video solely on how he takes over games and how offenses plan around him, but there is no reason to suggest this won't continue in 2022. Bosa did all of this at age 24, and playing a premier position like pass rush generally takes a bit longer to develop than other positions, and rarely do you see a rookie have a huge impact in the sack category. Bosa had 9.5 sacks in his rookie year and was outstanding in 2019, and for what it's worth, that's a big reason why everyone was and is so high in Micah Parsons, because of that production at that young of an age. But the thing with Nick is he has to stay healthy. 2020 was a very unfortunate season for him and the 49ers, and when several key starters missed a lot of time, not surprisingly, they finished with a losing record and missed the playoffs. Generally, that happens. That is one of the only things that will stop this team in 2022 from being a top contender in the NFC, the injury bug. Fred Warner is what he is, and that's one of the best linebackers in the NFL. The only concern I truly have with this team outside of Lance's development, and again, I think he'll be fine, is the secondary play and how they will do week in and week out when they play receivers like Cooper Kupp, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, DeAndre Hopkins, Michael Thomas, Tyreek and Waddle, and Godwin and Evans in consecutive weeks. This is when they will need Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, and second-round pick Drake Jackson, who has a chance to be a big steal from this draft class, by the way, to step up most. There is another thing I want to note regarding the 2022 49ers, and it is about Deebo Samuel. I love Deebo and think he is a hell of a unique chess piece in their offense, but I also don't think they're going to let him run the football as much this year, and why would they? They paid him an enormous amount of money, and adding all of those extra touches only further risks injury. This also does not mean he is done running the football for the rest of his career and that he won't attempt another running play again, but another offensive weapon in Carolina has been hurt a lot over the past 2 years, and granted Christian McCaffrey runs the ball a hell of a lot more than Debo ever will in a season, but I do think they will be extremely selective regarding his carries in the future. I do think this team can get back to the NFC Championship game this year and potentially even further. Will they is another question, but remember, there is no limit with the 2022 San Francisco 49ers. And with that being said, that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, now is the time I ask you to please leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as it would mean the world and help tremendously with the YouTube algorithm. Until next time, as always, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.